again, welcome back here to the final segment of the Best Stocks Now radio hour. Well, it looks like the entire Los Angeles school system on lockdown as they have received numerous bomb threats. Terror comes to the West Coast. You know, we have not been, we've been immune. All of the terror attacks have happened New York, mostly Boston, East Coast. Well, now it's here on the West Coast. Welcome. Gee, I think I'll be looking for some strong leaders in these debates coming up. Okay, I want to talk in this last quarter about some themes for 2016. You know what? People get wild ideas and they think, here's what I'm going to do in 2016. I'm going to go in this direction. Well, I'm just going to tell you my observations. I fish these waters every single day. This has been a choppy year. It got really, really choppy in the late summer of this year. We were kind of cruising along, and then we went through in fact, the worst sell-off since we've had since the bull market began. And we've survived that. The oil sell-off was vicious. It took about $8 to $10 per share in earnings out of the S&P 500. And it was the biggest factor behind a flat to down year. Now, let me tell you, you take a look at the S&P 500 being down a couple of percent this year. Most investors did a whole lot worse than that. If you had emerging market exposure, which most people do, if you had commodity exposure, which most people do, if you had investments in the MLPs, I've had some accounts that have come to me that were loaded up in high yield master limited partnerships. Those accounts are down 35-40% this year. They've been absolutely trashed. So you got to be careful. You got to keep on top of the themes that are prevailing in the market. Now, one way that people like to go is to be a contrarian. Contrarians at the beginning of this year were buying emerging markets. We're buying energy stocks. We're buying gold. That hasn't worked out for several years now. To just be a contrarian doesn't make any sense. This stuff continues to look horrible. I don't like things that are in downtrends. I don't like to be a contrarian just to be a contrarian. I like to see things stabilize. I like to see things healthy. I like to see things start to thrive once again. So I don't think the contrarian play should be a theme that you should be thinking about right now for 2016. That eliminates the energy stocks for now. Let's give them more time. Not ready to jump back in. People ask me every day, I get a tweet or an email from somebody, Bill, is it time to jump back in to some of these high-yielding MLPs? And I've been saying for months, no. Avoid them like the raw oysters at the company party. It's not time to jump back into commodities, gold. You're facing an uphill battle. You have a strong dollar. That is a stiff wind blowing in your face. And until that turns around and changes, you also need inflation with commodities. We're at 2% right now. We're just starting to see the meter start to rise, just barely into visible territory. After being non-existent for years, that inflation meter. I still do not like commodities. We have a rising interest rate environment. That's definitely a theme. What does that have the biggest negative impact on? The debt markets. Junk bonds, high yield bonds, corporate bonds. I would be very careful with the bond market in 2016. I still think it's going to be the growth stocks, the growth sectors, the growth industries, the pharmaceuticals, the healthcare, the technology, the semiconductors, online. You know, I was thinking last night while I was at the mall, it was freezing cold. There was hardly anybody there. It was really kind of depressing. I'm thinking, how many people right now are sitting at home in the warmth of their home in their easy chair shopping online, where there's a much bigger variety. There's no lines. I think the online revolution is here to stay. And I think that's another theme in 2016. Google, Amazon, Facebook, they're not going away anytime soon. Netflix. Online. We're not driving to the video store anymore. I went into Macy's. You could have shot a cannon in there and not hit anybody. I don't know. Times have changed. They've changed big time. It's a different world that we live in. That should set your investing in a little bit different direction than you've been in the past. You can own Macy's or you can own Amazon. It's your choice. But I think the themes for 2016 are going to be very important to play. I also think we're in a good earnings theme for 2016. Most analysts, including myself, are projecting about 8% growth in earnings in 2016. We had 0% growth in 2015. Oil took away most of the growth in earnings out of the S&P and the strong dollar. Well, those two should be behind us, at least the worst of it. And we're looking for 8% growth. Doesn't that point you in the direction of growth stocks? Where do you find the best growth stocks? The one that are popular now. The best stocks now. That's the name of my show. I try to talk about it every single day. My app, Best Stocks Now. My weekly newsletter, Best Stocks Now. You can go to my website at gundersoncapital.com. And if you'd be interested in having somebody invest your money in these themes and trying to navigate through some pretty treacherous waters, which should be a little bit less treacherous this year, you can give us a call. I don't like the traditional asset allocation. Morgan Stanley has warned that the efficient frontier is about to collapse. Expect 2 to 3.5% returns going forward. You know what? I'm not willing to settle for that. I'm not going to own the asset classes that are going to be under fire here going forward. I'm going to try to stay in the best asset classes, the ones that are flourishing, until that changes. We watch the market every single day here. We fish these waters every single day. It helps, you know, it helps. It has not been an easy year, but I'm ready to turn the page. I'm excited about 2016. I am excited to write my first newsletter of 2016 and do my best to point you in the right direction. I talked about a couple here today. They're examples. They're not recommendation. There's a lot of them in the newsletter. GundersonCapital.com, or give us a call. Put together a plan. Execute that plan. Let us help you. 855-611-BEST. 855-611-BEST. Have a great day, everybody.